All right. Good Monday morning, everyone. So it is. We have had a crazy weekend in my household, but you guys are listening to Author Talk with me, Amy Fern. Our lovely guest co-host is Sandy. She's back again, and our lovely author guest is Kim. So you guys, my weekend. Okay, you guys know my kids had COVID last week, right? So I tested positive for COVID on Thursday, but it's more like allergies for me. So I am still a peppy little person that just gets winded a little easier and is more tired. But with that, my husband was out of town last week and then he had to go to a wedding because my husband is doing great. Okay, of course, naturally he just has defined himself as the cure because he has yet to get it. So it's just an inside joke. I think he just, takes a shot of whiskey every day and that kills it. That's my opinion. That's a hill I'm going to die on, is that one for sure. But it was this weekend, we were just mostly the girls were in full swing of getting everything going, everything like that. And so I was more taking it easy doing laundry, which, if anyone knows, I hate laundry. I wish I could just live out of baskets. It's not the doing the laundry part, it is the folding part that is just not my friend. It's not my friend. Good morning, Greg. Good morning,
Hi,
everybody.
Greg. Hi,
Oh,
Greg.
my goodness. So, with that being said, I am back. I still get winded, but I am back full kicking and everything. I'm excited about this week. We have a lot of cool stuff. I did also do a workshop on Saturday for the Houston Writers Guild, going back to basics with social media, which was an awesome experience. I had so much fun. I met some amazing people with that. But enough about my weekend. What all did you guys do? Sandy, what did you do this weekend?
We had company. My husband's son and our grandson were here, and his new grandson, and they all live in New York City, and they all came in on Saturday. So we spent the weekend hanging out with them, and yesterday we totally took over one of the barbecue, as my husband said, one of the barbecue joints. I think we had all together because it was my family and his family, and the blended family. We had like 27 people that descended on this restaurant, but we had a great time. Great time. The kid, his one grandson is in college, and the other one is a year old. So lots of variety. But we just had fun. They're leaving tomorrow, so we just had fun hanging out with them.
I love it. I love it. Fern, what about you? What all did you do this weekend? How did your shuffleboard tournament go?
Well, we haven't seen you in a few weeks. I miss you.
I know. It's been exciting. I had so much to catch up on when, if you leave work for a whole week to go and do something, then, it takes more than a week apparently to catch up on that. So, but the shuffleboard tournament, I was in Oklahoma, in Del City, Oklahoma, and it's called the Women Wondering the World tournament. So it was all ladies and it was great. I had such a good time. We stayed in an Airbnb home that was very like, 1930s Gothic feeling. And we had a wonderful time, just kind of sorority type, staying up late, chatting, snacking, and then playing. I actually got a lot further than I thought I was going to get, in terms of,
Mm.
I'm improving, from the first ever time that I did any kind of tournament work. Like I've actually improved. So yeah, it was great. I learned a lot too. Like they were so everybody there was so welcoming and being newbies, like there was a lot of us that from Houston that were newbies. They'd never been to tournament. So we got a lot of really great love and instruction and just patience. People were very patient with us, so it was really
Who,
nice. It
who
was very
even
great.
knew that they had tournaments for the shuffleboard tournaments? I mean, and
Oh
Kim, you'd have
yeah.
to
Oh
see. I don't, Kim, you may be familiar with this, but it's not the shuffleboard that old people play. Where you push this thing on the ground. This is like
no,
a
this is
tabletop game, and it's
yeah.
very interesting. And
Yeah,
Fern
so
has just been doing it for a while.
the table shuffleboard is played on a 22-foot table um, that is slightly concave. It looks flat, but it's actually kind of curved. and you take your weight and you slide it towards the mark on the other end, and you try to keep your opponent from scoring and such. I mean, it's got quite a lot of skill that you really require, and one of the best things about it is that you really cannot be worrying about anything. You can't be thinking about anything else. You really, while you're playing, you are focused on your body, your breathing, the motion of your hand and the position of your weight and stuff. So it's a really great way to totally relax from whatever is happening in your world, you know?
I need
So, and
something
it is,
like that.
it's
We
great.
all
I'm
do,
sure.
Kim.
Where are you at, Kim? Where are you coming from?
Oh, well, I didn't get any good barbecue like Sandy did this past weekend or play any good shuffleboard, but I am at Amelia Island. We came down here because my husband is also an author and he has a book signing and talk here, Amelia Island. So we decided to make a weekend of it. He's got a new book coming out called Return to Hardscrabble Road. It's a follow up to his first book, Hardscrabble Road. And they invited him down here to talk. And so we brought I have a 21-year-old and a 10-year-old. So we brought my 10-year-old with us down here and we thought, well, we'll go to the beach, do the book talk for him. And so we're down here. So I didn't have good barbecue, but I did have excellent shrimp and a pina colada at this place called Shuckers. And there was a man there playing guitar. So everything is good.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
Mhm.
Nice.
Wonderful.
Nice. Fern, when you said Oklahoma, I was going to start singing the Oklahoma song, but I've refrained because no one needs to hear my singing. But whenever someone.
An elephant's eye. That's what I remember about Oklahoma.
Really?
Oh,
I just
Oklahoma.
remember, like when the wind comes sweeping through the plains, like that. So I'm just like, oh my gosh. So whenever someone says Oklahoma to me, that's like, I just am like, I don't know, Oklahoma, where the wind comes sleeping through the, like, I can't just say Oklahoma. The whole song.
Yeah, I felt like we should have played the song on our road trip there, but
Yes.
I was overruled on that. But
Oh, well.
I was like, we should have set off like when we first got onto the highway. We should have turned on that song, just or when we arrived, when we crossed the state border. I don't know. I feel like that song should have been a part of our journey, and
it
yet
should have been your
the
theme
people
song.
with me. Yeah, the people with me were no.
Oh,
So
see, it
I was
should have been whenever
overruled.
you went up to do your tournament. I don't know if you got theme songs, but I would have put it on my phone. I would have played the Oklahoma song on my phone. Like I don't know. Like if it was in Alabama, I would have played Sweet Home Alabama, right? I mean, that's just what I think of. But yeah, I can't say, it's really I really have to refrain when I say Oklahoma because I just want to start singing the song. I don't know why, but it's just the whole thing.
That's adorable.
It's just part of it. Oh wow. Wow, Bob, Oklahoma is part of your roots. I love it.
One of the things that was really fun this weekend, because that was like a couple weeks ago, was the shuffleboard tournament. But this weekend was really great because the Houston Polo Club, the season has started, and
they have
so
a polo club.
We do. We have a polo club, and Mac and I went to see the game, and just honestly, we are not 100% sure how the game is played. We just rooting for the.
That's what I was wondering.
Okay.
We just looking at the horses, but I found out interestingly that there are 3 games in that you can only do right-handed. They only allow you to play right-handed.
Oh.
Any guesses? Obviously polo, right? Polo is one of them, right? Only right-handed. Can't use your left hand. Any guesses on the other 2? Ladies?
What is that one? Cricket? Can you do cricket right-handed? What is that other one where you have to hit the ball through the little arches?
Yeah, it would be cricket, but no. So
yeah, croquet. There you go.
The 2 other games that you can only use the right hand, right? You're not allowed to use the left hand, are High Alive, which I have never played. I'm not sure about it, and field hockey. Apparently, field hockey, polo, and High Alive are only right-handed. You may not use the left hand, which
I wonder why. Is there a reason for that?
I think
Interesting.
for polo it makes sense because like if you think about it, your mallet, you have to kind
Yeah.
of be able to know where the mallets are at all times. So, I guess for safety reasons, but I don't know enough about the other two to hazard a guess on that. But I
Interesting. I
learned
didn't even
something
know
new.
the other two existed. So
I've heard of field hockey, but I'm not. Does that just mean it's the same as regular hockey, but they play it on a field instead of on
is that
ice?
like the roller skates? I don't know. I don't know.
Your
I did
guess
not
is
know that
Okay,
these were
so
things.
the people that do the field hockey out there, please forgive us for not knowing
I
anything
know. I'm
about
so sorry. Oh my goodness. I should research all of these because I haven't heard of any of them. I mean, polo, but I didn't think polo, was played here in the
Oh
States.
yeah. We
I
have
didn't know
oh my
that.
god, yes. We have a
Um,
very vibrant polo community as in the United States. And
in
Houston is,
Houston. In Houston, we have a
Houston,
polo club.
we
right?
have a
That
polo
I didn't.
club.
Is that like?
There,
Is it
there
like the Kentucky Derby? You wear all those like fancy hats and stuff because that would be fun.
So it's really more relaxed. Like you wear,
Oh,
kind of a nice sundress and stuff. But they do have one of the games that is coming up. They will have a hat contest.
oh,
So
okay. I'm there.
yeah, there will be a hat contest. And
I
I
can
did
do
wear
that.
my hat because even though you're under pavilion and there is shade and stuff, I mean the sun is pretty intense. And then at halftime you do have to go out into the field and help stomp the divots, right? Because
Help what?
and
Help do what?
the
The divot.
divots, you have to stomp the stomping of the divots because the horse hooves, they break up a little bit of the turf, right? So then there's these indentations, and then it's harder for the ball to roll. And so there's so during halftime the spectators, we go out into the field and you look for those indentations and you kind of stump down the grass, kind of make it even, and they give you champagne while you're doing this and you're stomping the divots. And you have to
You
be
know what?
careful.
Did they do that in Pretty Woman?
They did.
They
Okay,
did.
I was
because I was going to
thinking
say,
of
when
that.
you told me about going and stomping, I just pictured Pretty Woman in her dress,
Yeah.
where she was like, big mistake. And then she has this nice dress that she's wearing and she's stomping it,
Mhm.
and she's laughing. I was like, okay, they do that.
And I
That's
never
the only
knew
reason
that.
I know about it.
Thank you. Me too. Me too. That's the only reason I pictured it. Okay. I love it. Yes, that is a good movie. I need to watch that movie. That is a good
Yep.
one. I don't think Josh has seen that. I need to make a mental note.
It was just on this weekend. I watched it again.
Oh my goodness. I need to
Yep.
watch it for sure. But
For
Kim, you
sure.
mentioned that your husband is an author and you also are an author. So with that being said, Sandy and Fern, take it away. Let's get to hearing about Kim and her published author work.
Well,
Fern,
Kim,
you
I
go
think
ahead.
one
I
of
will
the
be right here supporting you.
all right. So one of the things that I kind of wanted I always want to know is what made you decide to become an author? What is it that made you want to become a writer? Because I think everybody's, spark is so intriguing and awesome, and it's wonderful for other people to hear what motivates us as writers. So what brought you to writing?
Oh, wow. This is a heavy one. Well, this one goes way back. When I was growing up, I grew up in a very violent home situation. And which was what eventually led me to be a CASA, a court appointed special advocate. And if you don't know what these are, they're, oh, is that me buzzing? They are people who are children's advocates. And when a child is taken into the Department of Family and Children's Service, removes a child from the home, whether just to investigate for a short time or to take them into foster care or to go live with another relative while they figure out where to place the child permanently or to send the child back to the parents or whoever, they will assign them a children's advocate. And I volunteered to do that for a while because I had been removed from my home when I was a child. So during that time, and I was raised in a Christian faith, and we learned that David, would write the Psalms of David. they were, the blues. They were just him expressing himself, and he would, just pour out his heart. They were laments. They were just him getting it out. And so that's what I would do. I would just page after page after page after page. And I think at a very early age, it just taught me to get it out there, just express it. Like, don't even edit it initially, just get it out. And so I think that's when it began, and that also led me to do some good things too, to, this sort of alchemy where I transformed that into something positive, where I could be there for other kids in that situation. But yeah, that's how the writing began, was just my own sort of therapy.
Kind of a healing.
Yeah, healing,
and
healing,
it's such
And
a wonderful thing to bring up, because a lot of times people don't realize just how therapeutic writing is. Whether you're writing nonfiction or fiction, so much of you is in there, and you can express so many things of your own personal situations, and just get it out. Like you said, get it out of you, put it on a piece of paper, you can dissect it.
And I think a lot of people don't even get that sometimes, and my friend Kathy says this, she's one of the women in our critique group, and she says that fiction often gives away more about us even than if we're writing nonfiction, because we're able to let all that out in the form of a character without censoring it, because we're putting that on another character and it's someone else. So we can just be freer in some ways than if we were writing about ourselves, oddly enough,
That is very true. So you've written a book that is it just released, I believe, or is releasing coming out?
It's still technically in pre-order, but I was getting pictures on Instagram and Facebook where people were saying, I got my book in the mail today. So they went ahead and sent them out. But yeah, you can order it on Amazon now, but technically Thursday, but yeah, it's out.
Well, so tell us a little bit about this book. What was the genesis for it? Where did this story come from? Is this a book one, or is this a standalone? Give us the 411 on Stealing Aries.
Sure. It is book one in the Aries Ascending series. It's going to be a series of books. And I wanted to do a series because I get so engrossed in a book that, I have that sense of grief, when a book ends, and I just want it to keep going. And I'll read a series. I mean, they can write 11 books and I'm still right there with them. So I wanted to do a series as well and just keep it going. And I just fall in love with characters. And so wanted to do a series. So yeah, this is book one in the series. And as far as how it began, I think because I was raised in a very charismatic Christian setting, and some people might not see this connection, but it opened my eyes to the idea that there were worlds you could not see. And some people might not see the leap here, but that led me to just have an open mind about these things. And that led me to also be interested in physics and theoretical physics, and the idea that there could be like multiple universes and just all kind of things you can't see, right? Because the spectrum of what we can see, there's like infrared, right? That's just a small part of our vision. But there's actually, if we could see more than just this, there's all this other stuff we can't see, right? And so in the 90s, I read a lot of Fred Alan Wolfe, Paul Davies, things about multiple universes, right? And M theory and expansion, anyways, and I think it was my early upbringing, like the charismatic Christian world, that believed that there were a lot of things that you couldn't see, that oddly enough led me to interest in physics and sci-fi and fantasy. And this is a sci-fi book, but there's a lot of overlap between sci-fi and fantasy. And so that's what got me interested in sci-fi.
And I love that you mentioned that, because I thought it was great that from physics and from quantum physics and all the things that you were studying and learning about in college, or learning about. I don't know if you said at college or not, but I remember you said you were studying it. That led you then to write fiction, science fiction. I think that's a very interesting. I don't think I've ever heard of that before. Have you heard that you're studying physics and all of a sudden you have, this opening to these other universes and other worlds, and you start writing about science fiction? I think I love that. I love that story. I love that you had that on your website.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
I originally was majoring in physics, and then the math made me cry. And I thoroughly believe, if I'd have stuck with it, I believe, anybody has the capacity, to learn it. But I thought, I don't have to sit here and cry my way through every math class. I can still write about the things I love without becoming a physicist. I can still love those books and enjoy those books and write about these things. I don't have to torture myself with the math that's making me cry. So I veered and became a writer.
Yeah. And that's a really great thing, because I think that one of the things that people don't realize is that science fiction, especially science fiction, is, as a genre, very research based, right? You really do need to have a connection that is, direct to what we already know, right? As a science fiction author, you are hypothesizing, right? You're hypothesizing, extrapolating what could be in the future based on the science that we know now that exists. So, there's it has to have a direct link to real science for it to
Yes.
be a science fiction novel. And so when you're talking about multiple universes and dimensions and things, the plausibility right now is that there would be, because there are many scientists that are working in that idea of the multiverse, and where and how do they interconnect, and do they interconnect? And a lot of people doing work with time and trying to figure out, is it a construct? Is it real? Is it constant? Is it variable? There's just so much scientific, investigations in these concepts. And then it's great as a writer to play with them, right?
Oh,
To
yeah.
extrapolate and play.
There's so much
So-
there. It's fascinating. And that's why I put on my website links if people want to know more about the EM bubble, the electromagnetic bubble that the ship travels in. That was actually based on research that scientists have done, theoretical physics scientists who have researched this. So there's articles in there about how they theorize that yes, this might one day be a way that we actually travel. So the science in my book is actually things that I've researched that are theoretically possible. And there's been, papers written on them. It's not, anything that's not plausible for the future. Yeah, that's exactly. Yeah.
So what are some of the, I just kind of want to get a sense of the story, like, because it is a book one. So you're introducing the world, you're introducing some characters, and you're introducing some problems. So tell us a little bit about the story. Like, what are, without giving anything away, right? Without spoilers, tell us a little bit about what happens with book one, and then what's going to be, kind of the overarching, kind of storyline for the whole series.
I'd love
where
to.
Where are you going with it?
Yeah, well, we're getting really close to getting somebody, like literally getting somebody on Mars soon, right? I mean, that's inevitable. That's gonna happen. So I was playing with the idea that, okay, we get people there, we've got Mars terraformed, there's a colony there, things are going along pretty good, but what if something happens here on Earth, and those people who are still, I mean, they're doing good there, they're fairly self-sufficient, but they still need help from Earth. But what if something big, something tragic happens here on Earth and we can't help them anymore? That's just a terrible position to be in. So I had always been fascinated with the 1918 flu pandemic. Now, this was years before the pandemic happened here. In fact, little interesting side story, my engagement ring, this one here, this was given to my husband's grandmother by her fiance in 1919, I believe. And he gave it to her. He died during the Spanish flu pandemic, and they were never able to get married.
Oh my God.
And I showed this ring to a friend of mine, and they pointed at it after George put it on my finger, and they pointed at it and they said, I don't know about that. Because they thought, don't wear that thing. That is just, it's cursed. It's bad luck. Don't do it. I'm like, no, I am going to redeem this ring. We're going to get married and it's going to be fine. So he gave it to me and we got married during the next pandemic over 100 years later, and we are both fine. So, but anyway, I thought it was interesting.
That is an interesting
I
story.
love that. I love that you were like, no, we're going to do this. I'm going to redeem this ring. This is how we're doing it. Oh, I love
and it's
that.
a lovely ring. And, he passed away and I thought he loved her, and there is something sweet about that. And they didn't get a chance to get married. So I don't think it should be cursed. It's love,
I love that story.
But, so I was always fascinated with the pandemic. But I wrote the book about 4 years before this pandemic. And so when I started shopping the book, so the idea was the pandemic swept the earth. And then half the population on Earth died, and they couldn't help the Mars colonists anymore because they were like, we have to help ourselves. Our crops are failing because, there's hardly anybody left to work the crops. We can't deliver supplies, it's just a mess. So, but then when I started shopping the book to agents, editors, they were saying no pandemic stories, because that's when I was actively trying to sell the book. And everywhere I went, no pandemic stories. No, they didn't want to hear it because I guess everybody had written a book during the pandemic and they had included the pandemic in it. And I just got discouraged, and I thought, the pandemic is threaded through the whole book. I just can't. It's too much. I can't do it. I just, no. And we go through so much as writers anyway. And this was like my 5th book. And I put it in a drawer and I just moved on to another project. And so I do a podcast with my Wild Women Who Write podcast. And we were recording, and Kathy, my fellow podcaster, said, well, tonight, let's do this exercise where we answer questions as our protagonist. She said, I did this at another writers group and it was really cool. So I answer questions as Harlow Hansen and my protagonist in Stealing Aries. And I realized just how bad I missed her, and that it was just such a shame of me to give up so quick. Like, I have been going to critique groups for over a decade. This is the 5th book I've written. I have, a stack of rejection letters this tall, but it's not really a stack because they're all email. But, I can take it. I'm good with this. Why did this knock me on my butt? Why has this got me stuck? And I'm like, oh, come on. You get it out, rewrite it. What's your problem? You get off your butt, So I needed a new tragedy to strand my colonists there on Mars. So I thought, my goodness, Yellowstone National Park sits on top of a caldera. That's why we have all those geysers going off all the time. If that thing blows, like really blows, if that thing ever goes up, truly, ash is going to circle the globe. Depending on how bad it blows, ash could circle the globe for generations. Crops would fail everywhere. I mean, we would be messed up for a very long time. And if Mars is colonized, we can't help them. There's no way. They're stuck. So I thought, let's do that. let's blow the caldera under Yellowstone National Park, and that's just going to be my new tragedy. I mean, that's what find and replace is for in Word, you know. Just
Mhm.
type in pandemic, and everywhere there's a pandemic, we'll call it the Gray Death, and that'll be the ash circling the globe. You know, we're writers, we're resilience. You know, we're resilience itself. We're used to dealing with this.
Very creative.
Yes,
Mhm.
I cannot allow this to stump me from a story that I love. You know,
Mhm.
no,
Yeah,
get
and
up,
I mean, you know,
fix it.
you have your premise, you have it already really done. All you really needed was to change the catalyst, right? To
Yeah,
change what was it that sparked the problem, which, you know, in this case was the volcano. And I think that's a really amazing story to as authors, you know, because sometimes, you know, we are so attached to our story. And, you know, sometimes we feel like, oh, we wrote it, it's perfect, we're Mozart, nobody can tell us anything, right? But, you know, sometimes we have to be open and flexible to what is in the marketplace, you know. Other times, you know, there's times where you have your novel and you can hold it, and then its time comes, right? There's authors who, you know, the times have changed, the fashions have changed, and so, you know, suddenly the novel that they couldn't publish at one point becomes publishable. But sometimes you have to adjust, and
yeah,
so it's a great story of how authors need to be kind of open to thinking about, how can I adjust it so that I can move it into the marketplace, you know, because it's a great story, and I want to have it out there. So I love that story that you were able to adjust your tale to bring it to the marketplace. That is awesome.
yeah. We're creative beings. We can do that, you know. And when I look back on it, I'm like, what, you know, why did I let that discourage me so much? And maybe it just represented the years of discouragement before that, you know. Maybe I was channeling some of that. Well, you know,
Mhm.
but nah,
Mhm.
we
So
carry
So
on.
with these,
you went
so
through it.
the
You went through it and made it and completed it, and now it's published and it is available right now on Amazon. And it's Stealing Aries, Ares,
Yeah,
on Amazon. So anyone listening can go get. If you're listening today live, then it is available as a pre-order. If you're listening to this later, it'll be on Amazon. You can go get it anytime.
yep,
Mhm.
that's right.
And it's
So
the
your
first of the
colonists,
series.
yep, your colonists are on Mars,
Yep.
and they are now on their own from Earth. And so, you know, tell us a little bit about like your main character. What you know, you mentioned how much you really loved her and how
Yeah.
connected you were to her. What are some of the things that she represents for you, and you know, what are some of the things that you kind of have her go through in these novels, without spoilers, but you know,
Yeah.
kind of give us a little bit about your character.
Yeah. You know, I love that she, you know, she's grown up in a situation where she had to steal and scrape to get by. And she sees that there's this giant starship sitting there, and it's dormant, and it's been dormant for 2 decades. And she's mad because, you know, gold is an excellent conducting material. And so it's gold in the wires, and she wants to go strip it because, you know, she can sell it off to fund the colonists' welfare, you know, because there's so many things they need. You know, they're dying of lung congestion and things like that. And so she's sort of the Robin Hood of colonies. So when she sneaks on the starship to steal from it, there's the prince of the 25th century. He goes there to escape his grief because his wife and child has just died, and he's there doggedly trying to get this ship back online. And so they all hate him for it, you know, because they think he's just doing it for vanity and just because he's interested and he wants to be the savior. Oh, I figured it out, you know, and they hate him. But he's actually trying to get it back online because he knows there's a terrorist faction that wants to come there, get the ship, and they want to get it online so they can use it as a terrorist outpost to take shots at Earth from Mars. And so if they can ever get hold of the ship, they're going to just be the terrorist of the solar system. It's terrible. But Harlow doesn't realize that, and the other colonists there on Mars don't believe that. So when she sneaks on board the ship to steal from it, the thing wakes up from 2 decades of sleep and actually starts talking to her. It just starts talking to her. And so the prince realizes that this woman stealing from him is the key that he's been searching for. And so it's what I liked about it was the idea that really any little girl, no matter how, and I saw this a lot as a CASA, and I think maybe all little girls feel this way at some point, even as far as our society has come, sometimes girls don't understand, you can do anything, you can be anything. And I remember when I was a little girl running around my house, taking aluminum foil and making the little Wonder Woman bands and pretending that I was dodging bullets and making one to go up here, how you could take aluminum foil and make yourself look like Wonder Woman. I think all little girls need to realize that they are powerful beings, And for me, Harlow was a composite of all that. And she needed to realize that in herself. So when she comes on board the ship and it starts talking to her, it was the beginning, the definitive moment of her journey to realize she can be something more. She already has it in her, and something outside her sees it in her, this potential,
Wow.
And so that's the beginning of her journey. And it is a romance. So Jack, the Prince of the UK 500 years from now, he sees it in her too. He sees this potential and he invites her to come be part of the crew. And then there's a push and pull between the colonists because she's their girl. The colonists see her as, she's theirs. Why are you going to go work for the enemy? So then she feels like she's betraying them if she wants to be something more than a thief. So there's this war within herself and this greater society issue. Like if you want to pull yourself up and be something more, are you betraying your people? So there's that too. And eventually the colony ends up in a full circle back around to almost like the American Revolution, because Jack, who is a prince of the UK, when he goes to tell his parents, look, I'm here for the colonists. I want the colonists to get more for the iron ore, the gold that's on Mars, and the rare minerals that they're mining. His parents say, no, that starship belongs to us. We've helped support the colony all this time. And they basically just want to give them slave wages. And Jack is like, well, I'm not going to have that. And so the last thing he says to his parents is, they said, if you're going to be in rebellion, then, we're going to strip you of your title and you're a rogue state. And the next time we see you, it might be with an army. So the last time he sees his parents, he says, they said, do you have anything to say? And he says, yeah, don't tread on me. And then he leaves, which was the slogan in the American Revolution. So it's sort of a throwback to the American Revolution, which sets up book 2. So it's sci-fi, but there's a little American history in there too, in a way.
And
that is very nice.
It's got everything.
It's got a little everything.
Yeah, and I love that. I love the conversation we were having before we even came on air about sci-fi versus fantasy, and how sometimes as readers it's hard to distinguish, but even as authors, it's important to distinguish what your genre is for you to market it even. So so you've got a little bit of a history, nod to history, and you have a little bit of romance, but it's a sci-fi. So that's kind of the baseline of your book. So those of you who love science fiction, this is definitely a novel series you can jump into.
Yeah.
So with this, based on our conversation we had before, when we were talking about science fiction, fantasy versus science fiction, hard science fiction, would this book be fantasy or hard science fiction?
I would describe it as soft to medium sci-fi. And the reason I would say that is because when you have hard sci-fi, they can go on for 3 or 4 pages, about the warp drive in their ship,
And they do.
explaining how it works, explaining what the core of their ship looks like. And if there are people who are into that and can
Yeah, they
settle
are.
back and will love every minute of that, but usually in sci-fi romance, the reader is not looking for that because it's more character driven. They want to know, how does the protagonist feel about this? And how does the male lead feel about her? So my description of how the ship gets into an EM bubble, I don't spend more than a paragraph on it. So it's sort of a softer sci-fi.
Okay, that makes sense. Makes sense. And Fern, you've done a lot of writing, and you have in Inklings in your publishing company, you have authors who write science fiction and fantasy, or just science fiction.
Oh yeah, both. We got it,
Both.
and
That's what I
and
thought.
every kind of, yeah. We
Yeah.
are a full publishing house, so we have really all the genres. But
Okay.
yeah.
But you're you know the difference between the two, or when they switch, because I'm still grasping with that. It's like, okay, that
Yeah.
sounds
I
like
mean,
fantasy.
I think for a reader, honestly, for you as a reader, right? The readers, the key thing to I wouldn't worry about like the levels of science fiction and stuff. I would focus on, science fiction, right? Like your novel, Kim, is where all the elements of the story could be true. Okay, potentially in the future, there could be colonies on Mars. There could
Right.
be kingdoms and princes, right, from the UK leading one of the colonies. So there, the EM bubble that makes the ship go, it could be real. So there is truth as the basis for all the elements. And so I wouldn't worry about like whether it's hard sci-fi or soft. I would just say, yeah, it's science fiction because pretty much the whole story is plausible. It's potentially, it could be true. Whereas when you have fantasy elements, these are things that cannot be true, right? That no matter what scientific development our world goes through, we're not going to have wizards, right? I mean, there isn't going to be, it's not likely that there will be people who can use their minds to really move things, right? Or, people who can force choke you, you know, the Jedi are basically space wizards, okay? And George Lucas tried to sci-fi them by talking about the midichlorians,
You mean
right?
there
In
won't
their
really be
life.
a baby Yoda?
There won't be a baby Yoda. I'm sorry. But there will be alien creatures. You could find alien
Right,
creatures and
right.
other types of sentient beings. So that is plausible that we might go to planets and find sentient beings that are some humanoids and some totally different from us, right? But will we find magic? Like, can people do cast spells and stuff like that? Probably not, right? um so there's definitely, like, with fantasy, there's things that can never truly happen, right? That no matter how much science evolves, the likelihood of this is really slim, right? So that's how you can differentiate between fantasy elements and sci-fi elements. Now,
And I don't know.
I personally think dragons are plausible. I think that they may have existed. Some kind of creature that was dragon-like may have existed on Earth because we have it in every culture, a reference to them. So there must have been something, right? And it's possible somewhere in the universe they may still exist.
Yeah, I
So
think
I'm looking
a
forward
lot
to
of
that.
that's possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna say I'm staking my claim on dragons are sci-fi, but technically they're mostly categorized as fantasy, right? But
You know what? I
Yeah,
am.
sure.
What is it? I'm watching the Lord of the Rings series, right? And I'm not gonna lie, I'm waiting for the dragon. Because I'm pretty sure Lord of the Rings in like the first or the second movie, it's the dragon, right? And they're going through the gold, they find the dragon. Isn't that Lord of the Rings? I'm
Are you
pretty
talking about
confident.
Smog? You talking about Smog?
Is he a dragon?
Yeah.
Then
Yeah, he's the one
yeah.
that took over the dwarves' homes and ate them all.
Oh, that's right.
But
I'm waiting for this. I'm waiting for the dragon to come in this series because it is dragging. It's a commitment of
But I
love
don't know
to
that
watch
it
this series.
will it be in that time period? I don't know how far
Well,
back.
so this time period for Lord of the Rings, because you were talking about dragons. This time period is before the
Hobbit,
Lord of the Rings thing,
before
right? So it's
everything,
the creation of the rings, right?
right?
And how they're created and how like the 8 shadow people, you know, how they come about and the corruption that the rings bring. So that's what this is. So I figured he would be like towards the end or something. He's got to come in because he's somewhere, right?
Maybe.
Before, I don't know.
I'm hoping. Hey,
Honestly.
if they do, I'm totally. But I'm already in, right?
I know.
Honestly,
Yeah.
the only reason I'm watching House of Dragons is for the dragons. I mean, let's just face it. I mean, the story is all right, but like the dragons. I mean, I'm in it for the dragons. Okay, people.
I get
But
it.
we
I
are over
understand.
time, you guys, and you know who would be very upset with us.
Yeah, I
You
was
would be
just
looking
gonna
at us
say
with laser eyes.
maybe Russell.
Look at both of y'all becoming like Russell. Oh my goodness. I never thought I would see the day. I never thought at all. But
It's a new day. New day
It's
dawning.
a new day. It's a new week. It's a new year, right? In my
It
mind,
is,
I'm
it
already on the
is.
new year. For
Kim,
sure.
this has been fun.
It has. It has been so much fun. So thank you so much for taking time out of your morning to come and talk to us and tell us about your book and just you as a writer and how you came to become a writer and to publish your book and everything like that. You guys, we hope that you guys have a great Monday, a great rest of your week, and we will catch you all next Monday. But until then, everybody, bye for now.
Bye.
Thank
Nice
you all
to
so
meet you.
much.